Shabbat Shalom. Good morning to everyone. This is the normal Shabbat gathering of the Biblical Lifestyle Center in Texarkana, USA. It is our pleasure to invite you into our fellowship today, to have you come and listen to us. We feel somewhat like we're called to be midwives. All week, in each scheduled week of the year that the Holy One has given to us. He orchestrates and choreographs seasons of time, weeks for us. And this week, the choreographed narrative is that of Balak, the Parsha, the 40th Parsha of the Torah, the story of Balak, the king of Moab, Bilam, the prophet of the nations, the Bnei Israel and all the blessings slash curses that they received, and then of course the great horrendous thing at the end, which is the sin of Benot Midian, the daughters of Midian, the sin of Baal Peor, as it's called. So we're midwifing this because all week long you've been pregnant and growing. You've had this season of growing with this Parsha being your life force, the basis on which you've lived. You didn't maybe know it. You didn't realize that this baby was really growing strong and getting close to the delivery point all week as you were going through. Or perhaps you have come to know pregnancy in the kingdom as well as we do. And so you understand this is, everything about life is tied to this Parsha, to the Parsha of the week. And so we come to the end of this week, we come to the Sabbath, we come to the Shabbat, and our goal is to midwife, to help you produce, to give birth to the Kedusha energy, the empowerment, the wisdom, the counsel of the kingdom that comes from Parsha Balak. So get fixed on your focal point, get your breathing exercises down. We're in the labor room, and here comes the delivery. We'll coach you through this if we can at all do so. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our fellowship, to our time together. We hope today will be a blessing to you, that you will indeed receive some levels of divine energy and empowerment from this beautiful holy thing called the Torah and the plan of the King to set out our schedule for us and our choreography for us by giving us the Torah. This is a strategic week. There are 4 times during the year that we come to the brink, as I call it. We come to the brink of life. We come to the brink of insanity. We come to the brink of overwhelm. We come to the brink of living or dying, basically, 4 times a year. And according to the orchestrated, choreographed level of the Torah and the Bible, the prophets, we have these 4 seasons. One of those seasons is whenever we come to the brink of ourselves and we surrender to the Holy One, hopefully. That is Yom Kippur. That's the 10th of Tishrei. And that is the day in which we come to the brink of who we are, and we let him define who that will be for the next year. That's the plan. That's the goal of 10 Tishrei. That's the first step to the brink. But we have another step to the brink a few months later, in the 9th month, in Kislev, on the season leading up to the 25th of Kislev. We have what is known as Hanukkah, or the Hanukkah season. And during that period of time, we come to the brink of our dealings with the pseudo-intellectual sources of the world, the Greek mindsets of the world. We reach a point in that month of Kislev. We come to the brink. Are we going to surrender to the seduction or the oppression, as it sometimes turns out to be, of the pseudo-intellectual Greek mindset, or are we going to hold fast to the things that bring us Kedusha energy, that bring us our mission, our calling, our purpose and destiny in life, the closeness that we have to our Creator and our covenant partner and the King? So that's the first step away from the brink that deals with the world. We have another step that deals with the world in the springtime, in the month of Adar. Leading up to the month of Adar, we have the season of Purim. And this is not just a matter of seduction by the world and a little bit of oppression by the world, trying to make us like them. This is when we come to the brink of dealing with, they want to destroy us. They want to kill us. They want to wipe us from the face of the earth. And this is the season of Purim, and we learn about the Haman and the whole mindset of the Amalek generation who desires to destroy us and our mission, our calling. So we come to the brink in Adar, and then we come to the brink again beginning tomorrow night Actually, tonight at sundown. Tonight at sundown, we come to the brink again. This is the brink of the 3 weeks. So the 3 weeks between the straits, it's called. It begins tomorrow night at sundown and goes for 3 weeks between the 17th day of Tammuz, the 4th month of the year, biblically, and the 9th day of Av, which is the 5th month of the biblical year. Now, that season, this season of coming to the brink of life or death, blessing or cursing, we have to decide in this time at the brink, this season of the brink, are we going to be subjects of blessing and releasers of blessing, or are we going to be subjects of cursing and objects of cursing? These is the challenge of the brink at this time. Let me just say that for every 3 weeks between the straits, there's 7 weeks of consolation, comfort, and re-edification where we build back. And for every 9th of Av, there is a 10th of Tishri. There is a day of cleansing and atonement and purification waiting for us, those who persevere, those who endure, those who come forth. We come forth stronger than ever. These 4 times at the brink correspond to the scenario involving Hava in the garden. I mean, we have she was brought to the brink with regard to what she saw with her eyes. First of all, that was her first time at the brink. She saw the serpent, and then she saw the fruit, and of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And in that course, she was tempted to see it as good to eat, which it was not. And she had been told it was not. She was tempted to see it as pleasant to look at, which it was not to be looked at, because there were other things that were more important to her life. And she was taught to see it as a source of wisdom, which it most definitely was not. And therefore, she came to the brink. That was the first part of the brink, first trip to the brink. Second trip to the brink was whenever the serpent began to say, you will not surely die. And she took and she ate. So then we get the physical part. We get the eyes, and now we taste and see. So the second time of the brink is when what we'll actually put in our mouth and test the words of the Holy One, what we'll put into our system, what we will ingest by vision, but also by mouth, by hearing, what we will listen to, what we will incorporate into ourselves. That was the second test, time to the brink for Hava. The third time to the Hava was once she had done that and she became aware of her nakedness, she and Adam both covered themselves and hid. This is the pride of life. This is that level of that pride of life, that sense of I don't want to be ashamed, I don't want to be embarrassed, I don't want to be caught, shown for who I really am and what I have done, therefore I will run and hide. And so that's the third level. And of course, the fourth level was the fact that the Holy One came and visited and found them and visited with them. And actually, most people think it was this horrible thing and he cursed them. He did not. The Holy One does not curse people. This is a lesson we'll learn, because we'll talk a lot in Balak, and we learn the lessons in Balak about people, about cursing and blessing, and the difference between cursing and blessing, and the importance of cursing or blessing, as the case may be. This is a bigger subject than you ever thought. This is not a bunch of words that we're talking about. This is an entire focus and approach to life. Will you be blessers? Will you receive blessing in yourself? And then will you reflect it? Will you absorb it? And then will you project it into others? Or will you be cursers? Will this be your lifestyle of the curser? Whether you receiving curses at all the times from other people, receiving curses upon yourself, and then giving them to other people. So that's the four things. The same thing with regard to Yeshua and his temptation in the wilderness. There were 3 times he came to the brink, as you know. 3 times he was brought to the brink. The issue, first of all, was, again, what you see. These stones, make them bread. Turn them into bread. I've got to go through the whole scenario. You see this picture all through the Scripture, all through the Brit Hadashah, all through the prophets, all through the Torah. We see this is the way the Holy One does. 4 times a year we come to the brink, and one of those times he gives us a chance to have total renewal and restoration. Well, we're coming close to that time. I want to discuss with you a few things. I want to get into cursing and blessing. I said something very radical that will get me in trouble. I'm sure I will get a mail. I'm sure some of you are already, your mind is racing. I said that the Holy One does not curse people. And I said he didn't curse Adam and Hava. What did he do? He cursed the ground. He began to give limitations and restrictions upon the earth at that particular stage. Now, men curse men. Noah is the first example of this. Noah cursed his grandson, Ham. We have men doing cursing, and so we have men doing cursing all through the Bible. We see men cursing men all the time. We see it on our news. We see it in our entertainment venues. We see it in our fellowships. We see men cursing men. Men do that. God does not curse men. God, however, does in fact speak things that we interpret as curses regarding behaviors. And he manages his ecosystem in order that it continue to produce, in order that it continue to be fruitful, in order that the hope of the plan of creation continue to be manifested. So when we get out of the idea that God is cursing people, God is cursing human beings, or God would curse you, when you get out of that mindset, you realize, no, that's not his way. What is his way? What is the way of the Holy One? What is the plan of the Holy One? Why does he look at you and look at someone as an object to be cursed or as an object to be blessed? Does he look at you as an object that he delights in or that he despises? Does he look at you as an object of someone he wants to show favor to or as someone he wants to micromanage and punish and have vengeance upon? Does he look at you as someone he wants to nurture or someone he wants to abort? Does he want to look at you as someone he wants to cultivate and inspire and empower, or someone he wants to poison and cut off and wipe from the face of the earth? This is the challenge. Do you know who you are in his eyes? Do you understand the way in which the Creator looks at his creation? He never wants to destroy his creation. You are part of his creation. Humanity is part of his creation. He does not want to destroy you. He does want to nurture you, encourage you, inspire you, empower you. He does want to redirect you. He does want to give you that opportunity of the 10 Tishrei to come forth and be restored, be renewed. And he will do what is necessary to manage his ecosystem in order to bring you to that point. So the Holy One's way and our calling in him, it's not just him who wants to bless. It's not just him who wants to empower and inspire. He calls us to do the same. This was the Avrahamic call. The whole idea of life is we are here for a purpose. It is to bless. It is to bless the creation. It is to bless the species. It is to bless humanity. If you forget that, you can get angry real fast. You can get offended real fast. You can get frustrated real fast. You can get panicky real fast. You can come to the brink of sanity, of kindness. You can come to the edge of your love, your edge of your kindness and your loving kindness and your compassion. You can come to the end of all that stuff very quickly if you forget that the Holy One's desire is not only to bless you and to be a blessing, to make you a blessing as well. This is your role. He said to Abraham, I will bless you. And this is us. We are the Abrahamic dream. He said, I will bless you. And I will make you a great people, a great nation. And then he comes on and says, and those who bless you, I will bless. We have this mutual blessing, self-perpetuating blessing process going on. But those who curse you will be cursed, because they start a self-perpetuating process of a harvest, a seed time harvest, reap what you sow scenario. And he says, and I will make you a blessing to all the families on the face of the earth. Now, this is the mission. This is why blessing is so important. This is why when we get to Balak, and he calls in this parsha, it begins in this strange way. He looks, he sees, Vayar Balak, and he sees all that Bnei Israel has done to the Amorites. He sees it, And then the next thing he does is he gets everybody upset about it. Then he calls the elders of Midian together. He conspires with the elders of Midian. Let us go and we send for Balaam, a prophet of the nations, a one world order kind of a guy who has these supernatural powers that everybody believes in. That he lives in their heads because they trust him. They think he's important. And they send out to Balaam and they say, come and curse this people for me. Okay, now I hope you're seeing what the Holy One's trying to show you, what he's trying to birth in you. This idea of recognizing what you see will determine whether you want to curse or bless. Who you let live in your head, what imagery you let live in your heart, what information flow you allow into you will determine whether your flesh reaction is to bless or to curse. So be careful what you look at and what you think you see. Be very careful what information sources, what entertainment sources, what sources you allow to come into and have residence in your mind and in your heart, because they will decide for you what you will do. The Holy One's way is to delight in and show favor to and bless and nurture and call forth, cultivate, inspire, and empower potential for beauty, for fruitfulness, for simha, and for shalom, for joy and for peace, wellness, wholeness, well-being, productivity, provision, protection, safety, security, and sufficiency. This is his plan. This is his ecosystem manager goal. We have to take a deeper breath each year at this time and 3 other times during the year. This is why we're here. All else we try to do or get caught up in is a distraction, if not a poison that we are ingesting. It is our fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So, what is the way of the fallen mankind? The opposite of what the Holy One wishes to do. The way of man, fallen men, is to fixate on evil. That's why the psalmist says over and over again, fret not because of evildoers. Fret not over evildoers. Can we take a deep breath and quit fretting over evildoers? You say, no, but they're so evil. Yeah, that's why they're called evildoers. If they weren't really evildoers, they wouldn't be referenced as evildoers. Quit fretting over evildoers. You are getting somebody else is living in your head. Somebody else is talking to your spirit, talking to your mind, giving you false information. This is not the way the Holy One looks at people. Therefore, he does not declare them evildoers. Now, fallen man, fixates on the evil, because that's what the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil did to us. We thought we were getting both the knowledge of good and evil. We didn't. We only got the idea that we could now see, and once we see, we have to fixate on evil. So the way of the fallen men nations is to fixate on evil, and as a result, to gnash their teeth over it, and then to want to curse it, and the people who do it, and to criticize them, and to micromanage everybody in an effort to control them, to make sure they don't do evil. Do you see how opposite this is? The Holy One wants to nurture us to do good, and we want to micromanage people so they don't do evil. It is the exact opposite approach to life, and it is the damaging approach that he wants to teach us. So the way of fallen men is to gnash teeth over the evil and the evildoers, and to curse and criticize and micromanage them, to try to control them, and to limit and restrict them, and mock them, and use microaggressions against them. And then use macro aggressions against them, and to oppress them, and to deceive, and seduce, and isolate, and then eventually wreak a violent, vengeful holocaust upon them. This is the way of fallen man. This is the trap door. Once we begin to fixate on evildoers, once we begin to speak in the negative and think in the negative, and let the news reports in the world tell us all the horrible things that are happening. Are they happening? It isn't even relevant. What's relevant is our job. Why are we here? We are here to bless. We are here to bring hope. We are here to bring life. So I want to talk a little bit about this. I want to talk about the tests on the horizon. as we come to the brink. We are about to deal with something that is very real, that our flesh would say is very, very evil. We are about to come face to face with fanatic hatred. If you're expecting everybody to like you, if you're expecting the world to appreciate you and tell you how wonderful you are and pat you on the back for all the mitzvah you do, this is the wrong business. You're in the wrong covenant. The covenant is we are going to face, at least 3 times a year, we are going to face fanatic hatred. This is what happened in the times of the Greeks and the Maccabees. This is what happens in the time every year of Adar when we get the whole Persian Empire and Haman, the Malachi, and this whole process. This is what happens in the 3 weeks when the Romans, or maybe the Babylonians, whoever it is at the time who's in the world power, begins to consolidate world power in one world order, and they begin to see us as a threat, like Balak saw Israel as a threat, and they begin to conjure the final solution. We will face fanatic hatred. Don't stop doing what you're doing. Don't stop being who you are. This is your brightest moment. It is how you respond to fanatic hatred that will determine if you are indeed a blessing, as you were called to be, or you are just another one of the representatives of the curse. We will deal with the fanatic hatred of the anti-Semitic schemes of this world. Now, last week, I had the privilege of discussing with you a little bit about Psalm 1 as one of my favorite meditations. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the Torah of the Holy One. For in his Torah he meditates day and night. He will be like a tree planted by the rivers of living water. And I contrasted the rivers of living water with the river of slime that the world throws. And here's the deal. Babylon, Rome, the modern one world order people, they live in and they have running through their city a river of slime. It's no wonder they do what they do. It's no wonder they think as they think. They are slimed by this river of slime, which is the cursing source of waters. So we will face their hatred. We will face that. This week, we go beyond Psalm 1 to Psalm 2. Many of you know Psalm 2. This will be the focus of our meditations. Why do the rage? We just discussed. We're called to live. We're given the privilege of living by a river of living water, and to become like trees planted by those rivers of water, to bring forth fruit in its season, leaf not withering, and whatever we're doing prosper. Delighting in the Holy One and His Torah. This is what we're called to do. But why then? Why then do the nations rage? What's so bad about what we're doing? What is so offensive? What is so scary, frightening? Well, it all depends on what they're thinking and what they're listening to and what's in their souls. And so as we face these things and we say, why do the nations rage? Let's think about the rest of that psalm, or at least the next few verses. Why do the nations rage? And the peoples imagine a vain thing. Oh, you see, the problem is they see us and they imagine a vain thing. They think we're here for something else. This is why you read about the protocols of the elders of Zion, and you read about the whole idea of a vast Jewish conspiracy to control the money and control everything in the world. They have this vain imagination. They imagine a vain thing. Paul talks about this in Romans 1, but I won't get into that. Why do the goyim rage and the peoples imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, take a stand, and the rulers take counsel together against the Holy One. They really don't like the creator of the universe. They really don't like what he's doing because they want to micromanage. They want to control and limit everything, and he wants it to be fruitful and multiply and reach its fullness and potential, and that's threatening. Okay, so they are against the Holy One. They take counsel together against the Holy One and against his Mashiach, his appointed, anointed one, and they say, let us break their bonds in pieces. Any attachment we have to them, any connection, any influence they may have over us, let us break that off of us. How do you break off How do you break off the influence of someone who wants to bless you? There's only really one way, because blessing just keeps pursuing you. Love just keeps pursuing you. There's only one way to stop the influence of the blesser, and that is to kill the blesser. That's why they do what they do. They don't know how to deal with someone and a God who wants to bless them. And so he says, come, let us break their bonds. They will say, come, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast their cords away from us. But he who sits in the heavens does not fret over evildoers. No. He who sits in the heavens laughs. He finds joy deep within himself of who he is. He finds a sense of confidence and understanding. He's not mocking them. He's not being sarcastic or sadistic or cynical. He understands that this is a necessary part of the revolution of the world, of bringing it back to redemption. So he laughs. He holds them in this level of low esteem. He knows they're not that important. He will speak to him in his warnings, and he will distress them with deep displeasures, and he will say, nevertheless, in other words, whatever you think you're doing, whatever you plan on doing, I will set my king on my hill of Zion. And I will declare a decree. The Holy One will say to him, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession. Wow. So now we have this idea, okay, maybe things, though they look very bad, and though all of our flesh wants to react against it and micromanage it and control it and stop it and legislate against it and do all the things we ought to do against it, in reality, the Holy One is using it to bring forth his Mashiach. He's using it to bring forth his kingdom upon the earth, and it is a necessary part of the process, not a pleasant part, but a necessary part of the country. But 4 times a year we should face this. 4 times a year we should get used to it. 4 times a year we should realize that each time, every time we come to the brink, what happens? He holds us in his hand and pulls us forth. He brings us forth, and he makes us better than we were before we got there. Now, that is the hope we have in these days. So, what exactly is this conspiracy of nations? Who are these nations, and what are they? And I call them, and forgive me, it's my slang, just keep myself so I don't have to repeat what they are all the time. I call them the not-so-new world order. There's nothing new about the new world order. This is the not-so-new world order. It is it is that same. It's Neo-Babel. It's Neo-Sodom. It's the new Babel. It's the new Sodom. It's the same old mindset, the same concept. Whatever you saw in Babel, the tower, the building, the city building, the make a name for ourselves, and let's cast off the restraints, and let's make sure we don't get scattered throughout the earth. There's that. And this Sodom, which was everything we can do, which is against what the Holy One says, let us do. Here's the verses I'll give you. From Genesis 11:3, they found a plain in the land of Shinar. This is these Neo-Babylonians, these not-so-new world order folks. They found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they settled there. And they said, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone. They had asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower for ourselves, a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. And let us make a name for ourselves, and lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the earth, which is exactly what the Holy One was trying to do, and would do and did as a result of this process. The idea is he wants the entire earth to be fruitful. And to do that, he has to send forth his seed sowers and his ecosystem managers into the entire world, and they wanted to stay in the plain of Shinar and do their own thing. So that was the first issue. We want to build this kingdom that we control, that we micromanage. We want to use technology. In their case, it was brick and asphalt. In our case, you know what technology is being used. You know, understand, whatever level man can come up with technology, he will use it and employ it in his Neo-Babylonian, in his new, not so new world order approach. And so technology will be one of the major factors. And so they have technology. Then in Genesis 13:13, speaking of Sodom, before all the events of the destruction took place, the Holy One has it put in the Torah, and the men of Sodom were, English says wicked. The Hebrew phrase is ra'im. It means that they are self-absorbed and narcissistic to an exponential degree. It's like if you said narcissist times 1,000. Narcissist times multiple numbers, multiple. This is what you are. This is what the New World Order is. They are so obsessed with themselves, their self-will, their self-possession, their self-pleasure, their self-aggrandizement, their self-promotion. This is what you will see. This is the new, not so New World Order. Not only are they ra'im, however, they are also, English says, sinful. Hata'im in Hebrew. Hata'im means breachers of the, in this case, Noahic covenant on an exponential level. In other words, everything about the Noahic covenant, everything about what the Holy One said, don't take man's life, don't eat the blood, don't eat flesh, all this negativity. If you take the life of a man, it will be accounted. All these aspects of the Noahic covenant are being breached, and they are being breached to the exponential position. And they are in opposition to the Holy One. So they are called what? The men of Sodom are called wicked, which we've talked about, ra'im. They are called sinful, which is hata'im. And they are called in opposition, adversaries to the Holy One. He who, what did Paul say? What did Shaul say? He said, friendship with the world is enmity to God. And that's really what happens here. We have this process. And so it's not only opposition to the Holy One, it is opposition to the Holy One, meod. In the Hebrew, this meod word means, we can say very much. It's like mucho, muy. But it's greater than that. It is to the degree of exercising strength and energy in this process. Meod. This is how they oppose the Holy One. So, the not so new world order that we deal with, that will take us to the brink, that we'll have to learn how to bless the people in, even though we understand the depths of the negativity of, is a one world government, one world economic system, a one world philosophy, a one world ideology, a one world humanistic, technology-based, pseudo-intellectual, weaponizing science and medicine focused form of radical religion. Radical religion, not about God, but about how to avoid God, how to fight God, how to resist and oppose God, how to resist and oppose His people. This is the one world government, one world economic system, one world philosophy, one world ideology, one world humanistic and technologically based, pseudo-intellectual focused, weaponized science and medicine driven form of radical humanistic religion. Now, that's your new, not so new world order. That's what rises. That's what conspires against the people of the Holy One, that rages, the nations that rage. That's what we see in Balak and Balaam and the elders of Midian and all the nations. They represent this. This is an end-time prophetic parsha that tells you, if you know what's going to happen to Balak and Balaam, you will know what's going to happen in those days when that rises again. But this one world government, economic system, etc., philosophy, ideology, requires conformity. It micromanages. It requires conformity of thought. You have to think like it thinks. It's mind control. It's thought control. It's almost like Oceana from the book that we all know, to which conformity of thought, speech, and lifestyle are mandatory. And complete loyalty to the state or the entity is demanded. That means if you have to have complete loyalty to the state, you have to disavow other loyalties. Any loyalty to the creator of the universe, you must disavow that. Any loyalty to your own family, to your own clan, to your own tribe, to your own nation, to your own geographical region, any of those must be forsaken. And this kind of loyalty and dedication is required upon penalty of, well, eventually it's going to be death. But before they get to death, they use a certain number of other techniques to try to corral you into this process. One of is just the insightful, angry rhetoric. If you hear enough angry words, you just want to make them quit, whatever it takes to make them quit. You hear enough narrative framing and false and lying, you just want to ignore, make them quit. So you conform. Whatever they tell you to do, you just do it because you just don't want to hear the negativity. That's step one. Step two, they'll legislate it if you don't do it. Now, step two is they increasingly sponsor and encourage violent pogroms, violent attacks, violent outbreaks of violence, outbreaks of destructive behavior where they destroy buildings and homes and neighborhoods and businesses. And then this is like Kristallnacht in Germany in the realm back before the Holocaust. And you see this destruction, you see these deaths. This is the second level of the attacks of the not-so-new world order. And then thirdly, you see ostracism and ghettoization laws, and they begin to separate you, put you in work camps, as the case may be, labor camps. They design certain neighborhoods you can go into and you can't go into. They tell you when you can travel and what the conditions of your travel are, and you will eventually be weeded out whether you cannot travel. You cannot purchase. You cannot buy and sell. This is the ways in which the new, not-so-new world order works. And that, of course, culminates in attempted Holocaust. It's coming. It's already here. They want to kill you because they don't know how to stop the cords. They don't know how to stop the touch of your blessing. I hope that's what you're doing. Now, we have Balak. I guess we should read a little bit so you get a picture. If you haven't been reading this week, if you haven't been having this pregnancy arise in you where you're about ready to give birth to it, probably we should read it. Let's see if I can find it on my thing here. Go ahead and look, if you would, at Numbers, chapter 24. Okay, internet's not working. So if anybody got a Bible I can borrow, I go Debbie over here. Sorry to take Debbie's, but yeah, that'll work. 22. Yeah. If you would stand with me as we begin to explore the marvels and the majesty of this word. The Torah of the Holy One is precious. So before we read, you can join me if you know this blessing. Open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth. Do not hide your commandments from us. Our souls cry out for your judgments at all times. How can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your Torah. For your Torah is a light unto our paths, a lamp unto our feet, and a light unto our paths. Amen. Beginning with chapter 22, verse 1. And then Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, set out and camped in the plains of Moab along the Jordan, across from Jericho. We're almost there. Verse 2, which is the actual beginning of Balak. When Balak, the son of Zippor, realized all that Bnei Israel had done to the Amorites, actually when he saw all that Bnei Israel had done to the Amorites, Moab became terrified because there were so strong people. Moab was filled with dread. The entire nation of Moab was filled with dread because of Bnei Israel. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, this multitude will lick up everything around us, the way the ox licks up the grass of the field. Then Balak, son of Zippor, was king of Moab at that time, and he sent messengers to summon Balaam, the son of Beor of Petor, near the river of his native land, saying to him, "Look now, a people has come out of Egypt. Behold, now they cover the surface of the earth and are settling beside me. Come now and curse this people for me, because they are too strong for me, because perhaps I may be able to defeat them and drive them away from the country. I know that whoever you bless will be blessed, and whoever you curse will be accursed." And the elders of Moab and Midian left the divination fees in their hand, and when they came to Balaam, they told him Balak's words. He said to them, "Spend the night here. I will give you an answer just as the Holy One speaks to me." And so the officials of Moab stayed lodged with Balaam. And God came to Balaam and asked him, "Who are these men with you?" Good question. Balaam said to God, "Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent word to me. See, the people coming out of Egypt cover the surface of the land. Come now, curse them for me. Perhaps I will be able to fight against them and drive them away." And God said to Balaam, "Do not go with them. Do not curse them, for they are blessed." So Balaam got up in the morning, and he said to the officials of Balak, "Go back to your country, for the Holy One has refused to let me go with you." So the Moabite officials got up and went back to Balak and said, "Balaam refused to come with us." Balak then again sent other dignitaries, more numerous and more honored than those previous ones. And they came to Balaam and said to him, "This is what Balak, son of Zippor, says. Please let nothing keep you from coming to me. I will richly reward you, and everything that you tell me I will do. Just come now and curse this people for me." But Balaam answered Balak's servants, "Even if Balak gave me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond what the Holy One says. I can't go cross beyond the mouth of the Holy One, my God, to do anything small or great. But now you may spend the night here again, too, and I may find out anything else that the Holy One may say to me." And the Holy One came to Balaam by night and said to him, "Since the men came to you to summon you, arise and go with them, but only the word that I tell you are you to do." So Balaam got up in the morning, and he saddled his donkey, and he went with the Moabite princes. Amen. You may be seated. It all starts with what Balak saw. Interesting. It doesn't say what he heard. It says what he saw. Something conjured up something in his mind. We have this vast conspiracy of the nations coming together to curse, destroy. He wants to destroy. The curse is just to get to destroy. We have this, but it starts with what you see. What you choose to see. Because you see, what he saw was not reality. What he saw was what the Bnei Israel, in his mind, did to the Amorites. Do you realize that is not the narrative? What happened with the Amorites was that as soon as Bnei Israel came into the area, they attacked them. The Amorites came with the sword and threatened to destroy them. That was the first with Sihon and his armies came against him. And there was no choice. There was no option. The only option was to either be destroyed, annihilated, or to fight back. And in the fighting back, the Holy One allowed the whole Israel to be able to overcome the assault of the Amorites and to turn them back, and not only turn them back, wind up possessing all their territory. Has nothing to do with Moab, except the fact that the Amorites had taken this property from Moab many years ago. So it was not Moab, not a threat to Moab. It was merely whenever the Amorites attacked, and they had two sets. One time it was Sihon and his armies, and the second time it was Og, the big giant, and his armies, and they came both times, and both times the result was they came and attacked. Israel had no choice but to defend itself and fight back, and they did, and they won. And that is what, so there is no reality to the narrative that Balak is hearing and thinking. He's thinking this was Israel is coming and causing trouble. Israel is coming and being the aggressor. And that is not what happened at all, but this false narrative that goes on, this false idea, this false vision of what we think we see. Many people think they see that today. Many people think that all this is going on, and so they see, and because they see things a certain way, they begin to react in another certain way. So it all starts with what Balak saw. And then he kept saying to the elders and to everyone, see, behold, look. He wants everybody else to see what he sees. He begins to spread this false narrative. He begins, and there with the false narrative comes all sorts of emotions and attitudes and moods and fear. and so Balak is now focused on fear. The second thing he does, he says, he projects, based upon what his false vision is, of the intentions of Bnei Israel, he projects what they will do. Falsely again. His paranoia, his rhetoric says they will eat up everything around us. They will take everything. They will take everything around us like an ox licks up the grass of the field. How much of the food of Moab or Midian did the Israelites need or want? Zero. Absolutely zero. Nothing was further from the truth than what was being alleged by Balak. But he saw it in his head. He had a vision of it. He thought it was real. He wanted people to believe it was real. So he had this kind that they want my stuff. They want your stuff. They want all of our stuff. They want to take everything. They want to control and rule the world. This is the narrative. And so Balak tells them what they're going to do is they're going to eat up everything around you, around us, like an ox licks up the grass of the field. So he begins to conjure fear. He's a fearmonger. He begins to conjure dread and hate and anti-Semitism. That this is a specific group of people. This is a people he wants to strike out. And so he conspires with his own enemies. This kind of thing breeds strange bedfellows, strange unity, strange collaborations. And the Midianites were not exactly the best friends of the Moabites, but nevertheless, here they are. They're now in this conspiracy together. And then he says, they make this plan to go and hire. Now, this is where it gets weird. Can we be honest? We're going to have a talking donkey before this is over with. We're going to have some almost parodies take place. This is going to be a form of literature that is far different than the rest of Torah. In two instances of Torah, we leave the narrative and we step into another realm. We go into the beauty realm in Exodus. We spend the entire month of that season of Leviticus also in the heavenly beauty realm. This is not just narrative of what takes place. This is heavenly beauty realm vision. This time of year, we take another dip. We go somewhere else, not the beauty realm. This time we go to the occult realm, the underbelly of bad humanity. And he takes these guys, I want to show you, so the Holy One takes us down in the underbelly of humanity, shows us the occult mindset and its fallacies and its vanities, and here we are. Well, Balak is actually our first brush with the occult and this dark world since we left Egypt. Egypt, we saw what I call westernized occultism. All about power. All about control. This is a different kind of mysticism or occultism. This is what Neo-Babylonian Eastern mysticism or occultism. And this is about seduction, and it's about deception. It's about playing a game of cursing and that kind of thing, as opposed to actual showing of actual power like the Egyptians did. Well, anybody remember in the Prince of Egypt, there was this one season when Moshe goes into the palace and he throws down his rod, and the magicians start singing their famous song, "You're playing with the big boys now." Well, here we are in the East, and once again we find ourselves, we're playing with the big boys one more time. Once more with feeling, as I would say. We've discussed the opening lines. Here's a worthy saying. Maybe something to keep us grounded as we go through this narrative. We have our brush with the occult, darkness world. Whoever you fear, revere, and respect, and whoever you hate, resent, envy, are offended by, or lust after, and, there's three, and whoever you seek and take counsel, information, or entertainment from. Those three groups. But whoever these three are, they cohabit in your head. They live in your head rent-free. You do not realize it. You let them live in your... They actually are controlling your thoughts. I should go further. And one or the other of them. Now, the first, those one you fear, revere, and respect. The one you hate, resent, envy, are offended by, or lust after. And the one you take counsel from, information from, revelation. These three live in your head, and they, or one of them, always controls the bulk of your thoughts. They control the bulk of your emotions. You have triggers, and they just pull the triggers of your emotions. So whoever's living in your head. They control your moods. They control your attitudes. They control the tone in which you approach life and you speak and address other people. They control the vocabulary that you use. They put words in your mouth. Just like, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. They put words in your mouth. They put phrases in your mouth. They give you a narrative to speak. They teach you, they give you reactions to have. They tell you what opinions and beliefs you should have. They tell you what priority matrix you should have. What level of energy and enthusiasm you will have comes from them, and your likes and your dislikes and your behaviors are all manipulated by them. They live in your head, and you don't even know it. And they live there rent-free because you give them fear, reverence, respect. You give them hate, resentment, envy, or you're offended by them, or you lust after them and you want to be like them. Or you take counsel from them, you let them inform you, advise you as to what your life should, what is the reality of the narrative. These live in your head. So, let's just go through this. One of them was going to control, one or more of them is going to control your thoughts, your attitudes, your approach to life, every facet of your existence, your emotions, how you feel, even the tone of voice you use and the vocabulary you use. One of them. So, since this is a true and worthy statement, isn't it important that we make sure that the one we want to have the authority to do this in our lives, this level of impact in our lives, that to live rent-free in our head and our hearts and our emotions, is the Holy One? That has to happen. Otherwise, we will become just mere mouthpieces, parrots, as it were, regurgitating the minds, the words, the vocabulary, the rhetoric, the bullet points of some movement, some ideology, some person, some institution. Now, I want to make sure I'm making myself, if the Holy One is the one you fear and not man, if the Holy One is the one you reverence and not some ideology, some institution, some concept, some movement, some mantra, if the Holy One is the one you respect and honor, then He can control your narrative. He can control your tone. He can control the level of energy and empowerment that you have. He can empower you with this. But if you let the world do this, if you let the nations or the the not-so-new world order, or its people, or its media, or its entertainment world, if the world, any aspect of this fleshly world has this place of residence in you, if you let anger, offense, outrage build up in you towards another person, it will begin to live in you and it will control you. And you will not want it to, but it will. So this is the key factor of how we're dealing with learning from Balak and from Balaam how not to behave, how not to get caught up in this world, and not to listen to those who are trying to tell us how bad the other people in the world are. Well, let's move on. To whom will you choose to give this power over you? This right to live in your head, this ability to dictate your thoughts, your self-talk, your conversations, your tone, your energy. I hope it's the Holy One. I pray it is, and this is where we're learning. It has to be the Holy One. If it's not the Holy One, then we are going to find ourselves on the brink in very dangerous ways and not know how to get back. But will it be the Holy One, or will it be some man, or some woman, or some group, or some movement, or some institution, or some idea or ideology, or some philosophy, or some political party, or some religious organization, or some ethnicity, or some culture, or some addiction? What will you let control your mind and what you see and the narrative you see taking place and how you react and respond to it? This is the question of Balak. And then let's talk about the idea. What did he want Balaam to do? What did Balak and the elders of Midian want Balaam, this prophet of the nations, this one who was not connected with any culture, this one world order guy? What did he want him to do? I want you to come and curse these people for me. Curse these people for me, in order that I may fight them and drive them away or destroy them. Now, I don't know if most of us really understand the significance of a blessing or a cursing. We've talked a little about it already, but I want to understand that if you bless or you curse someone, you're not just using words. You are charting a course of your behavior and theirs, and how the two will interact. You are setting a pattern for a relationship, whether you bless or whether you curse. Bless is barak. It means to release from limitations, to see potential and call it forth, to use to the fullest, to bring forth the fullness of who they are, the potential, the productivity. That's barak. That's a blessing. If you want to bless someone, then you don't just speak the words over them. May you be as Ephraim and Manasseh. You set your course of life based upon the belief that that's what God wants to do. You will now interpret everything that happens through the lens of that blessing that was spoken, because that is your reality. That blessing becomes a reality, whether it appears to be the reality at the present time, at the moment, or not. This is why parents can see your children behave in the worst possible ways and never, ever lose hope. And never, ever say they're just incorrigible and forget it. Because we have a blessing lifestyle mindset. We know that somewhere there is potential. We just keep speaking into the potential, blessing it, nurturing it, encouraging it. That's the way blessing is. It involves more than just your words. It involves your life course. A blessing is a life wish. I wish for you the best. I wish for you fullness. I wish for you greatness. I bless you with these things. Cursing is to have a death wish for them. I wish you would just dry up and die. I wish you would go away. I wish I was not having to deal with you. I wish you would just quit. I wish you weren't here. I wish you had never been born. This is the death wish of the curse. Now, the blessing is the blessing of nurturing and mentoring. And now we commit ourselves to a course. I'm going to nurture and mentor this person or this son or daughter or child or nation or anyone. I'm going to nurture and bless. And that means that whenever I see them do something wrong, I'm going to do what a coach or a mentor would do. We'll have some discipline discussions, but most of all, I'm going to redirect them. I'm going to keep redirecting them, give them another option, a better choice. That is what blessing involves. On the other hand, cursing involves nitpicking, micromanaging, and criticizing, finding fault. That's what the cursing aspect. You set yourselves on a pattern of finding every evil, every fault, everything they do wrong, and fixating on it and talking about it all the time. See what happens to your children. See how that works out for you. Or your spouse. or your coworkers or your friends. See how that works out for you whenever you nitpick, whenever you find only critical things, and always talk about and focus on the critical things. That's the cursing aspect of things. Now, the other aspect of it is to barak, to bless, is to Consider this person a part of your progeny, this, and nurture it and amon it. See it. I know we say faith or belief, but it's so much more. It's nurturing a life force to its maturity. You want to nurture it. You want to amon it, but on the curse side, you want to abort it. These are the differences, and this is a whole approach to life. It is not just words that you speak. You know, when you bless your children, you don't just speak words over them. You set a course. I'm going to behave in this certain way consistent with this blessing. I'm going to react to them, and to their failures in this course. I'm going to follow this course because I believe blessing is the narrative, not curse. Now, the words chosen both reflect for the blessing, whenever you speak a blessing, like for on Erev Shabbat, when we gather our children, we say to our daughters, may you be as Rachel and Leah, or Sarah and Rivka and Rachel and Leah, mothers in Israel, and go. Or we say our sons, may you be as Ephraim, Manasseh, and Manasseh. And we have these blessings. These words are not just, that's not the key. The key is what they reflect and engender. They involve thought and sight and feeling and feelings and attitudes and levels of patience we commit ourselves to, and short and long-term perspectives we vow to make. Blessings, consistent reactions, blessing consistent interactions, conversations, behaviors. So, here we are. I told you at the beginning that we are going to have the nations rise and rage against us, and vain imaginations spoken about us. We'll see some of our own appear to be becoming like them and joining their ranks, giving up, quitting. What will we choose to see? What will be the narrative we choose to follow whenever? Will we be in despair? Will we be angry, offended? Will we react violently against them? What kind of intervention will we do? The issue is, what will you see? What will you see? And what will you feel about what you see? If we've made the commitment to be a blessing, we will say, okay, this is the situation we have. This is what we need to do. The Holy One, what do we do to bring about the vision that you have for us, the blessing vision, as opposed to what steps can I take? What participation can I do? Not can I tell them how horrible they are. How can I give them something solution-minded, redirective-minded? Okay? Now, if you have a negative view, if you have an angry or a fearful view, where do you think it came from? Where do you think it came from? Where do you think Balak's view of Bnei Israel, or Midian's vision? It didn't come from the Holy One. It came from the occult dark world and the one who rules the dark world. The fallen human nephesh, the mind, the will, and the emotions are like this. I call it the rent-a-center. Let's talk about the story, this interesting story. First of all, we don't know whether Balaam is going to buy into this or not. He says some neat stuff. First of all, he calls the Holy One his God. It sounds good. But you probably have known a lot of people in your life that called the Holy One their God. But their behavior and their life story was another story altogether. But so we don't know yet. We just know he says he's my God. And then he does some interesting things. He says, I can't speak anything except what the Holy One gives me to say. Oh, really? It sounds good. There is a man who was given that ability to have the words of the Holy One put in his mouth. That was Moshe. And that's his calling for all of us, is that we will be able to speak the words he puts in our mouth, but never, ever did he say to us that we cannot speak anything. We, of course, have the power to speak other things. Do you know that? Most of us do it all the time. We speak of all sorts of stuff that the Holy One didn't put in our mouths. Moshe spoke of things that the Holy One didn't put in his mouth. He yelled, "You rebels," and struck the rock and said, "Do we have to bring forth water from the..." That's just the latest example. So now, when Balaam says this interesting statement that he cannot go beyond what the Word says and he can only speak what the Holy One says, what's going on here? Because you and I both know we have free will. And we can speak anything we dang well please. Now, we might have consequences. We will have consequences if we choose to speak a bunch of vanity or nonsense or lies or deceptions. But the whole reality is, physically, he had the power to do so. The other thing that's very interesting about this whole scenario with this visit is, you notice when did they come? He says, "Spend the night, and I'll see what God says. I'll go to God by night." Some of you New Testament scholars, wheels just began to turn. I'll go to God by night. I'll go to Yeshua by night, and Nicodemus. I'll go in the darkness, on the cover of darkness. I can't go. I don't want to go. I don't want to have the revelation during the day. I have to conjure it up. I have to go at night. And so and interesting, all the conversations he has at this particular stage are at night. Moshe, on the other hand, it's like mouth to mouth, breathing air all day long, any time of the day, any situation comes up. Moshe can breathe the air of the Holy One and catch the words of the Holy One. So what's the difference? Why is Balaam saying these things? Do you have a certain, you can only hear from the Holy One if you go to a church meeting or a prayer meeting or something, or a prophetic meeting? What are you thinking here? What are you saying when you need to be in a certain situation or a certain time of day or a certain location? What does that say about the level of your relationship? What does it testify to the world and to all who are around you about the level of your relationship? If you feel like you only can connect with them under cover of darkness or some other scenario, some other event, some other process. And so he goes, and the Holy One says, "Don't go with these men." And so he doesn't go with those men. He goes with the next group of men. We understand we're seeing some evidence coming out of Balaam's life. There's something wrong here. There's some evidence. Now, the sages say that, that Balaam is the alter ego of Abraham. Abraham, of course, went wherever the Holy One said, did not go where he didn't say to go. Abraham never, look it up, Abraham never cursed anybody. Never. Isn't that amazing? In all the situations he got himself in or was allowed to get in, he never cursed anybody. But Balaam, whoever he blesses is blessed. He's used to cursing people. Now, I don't know how he got his reputation. The stories, the legends, for what they're worth, are that Balaam was one of the counselors of Pharaoh, along with Yitro, Giannis, and the two guys. And he counseled Pharaoh. He was among those who counseled Pharaoh to oppress the Israelites. And that's just a legend. It's not sure that that's the case or whatever. But you get the picture. He's got a history. He's got a rep. He's got street cred because he's actually done something before where he's got a history of cursing people. That should tell you something. Do you know people who seem to have a little bit of religion in them but who tend to curse? Who tend to put restrictions, limitations on people, who tend to be negative in their approach to folks, who get angry, who are outraged, who are speaking the death wish toward other people or other groups. Understand now you've got your testimony that this is a person who is controlled by cursing as opposed to controlled by blessing. And so the strange thing, he goes through this scenario and he has these questions and he gets a word. He actually gets a message from the Holy One. He says, "Don't go, do go. Go, but don't say anything but what I tell you." And then the angel of the Holy One goes with him. Well, we're into this almost, this story is like psychedelic surrealism. Donkeys that see things that seers can't see. We have a seer who can't see. Can't see that there's an angel. He's a spiritist who doesn't see the spiritual realm. The angel's right there. The donkey can see it. The donkey responds to the angel, the Holy One, but not the seer. We have these surreal kind of things going on. It's almost like there's a parody happening. The Holy One sits in the heavens, and he does laugh. He says, "Look, they're not near as scary as you think they are. They don't see what you think they see. They don't know what they think they know. They aren't near as bad dudes as you think they are. They just messed up in the head." And so he tells us these stories about the angel, and the angel stands in front of the donkey and Balaam with a drawn sword, and the first thing happens is the donkey sees it and veers off to the field, and Balaam, what does he do? He whips the donkey. He beats the donkey. And then the next goes further, a little bit further, and the donkey this time, he doesn't have any place to go, so he kind of moves over to the side, and it kind of smashes Balaam's foot against the stone wall, and he's a little more serious this time. And so what does Balaam do? He's a one-trick pony. He beats the donkey. This time a little with feeling. And then the next time it happens is the angel's there. There's no place to go. The angel falls, steps down, and won't move another inch. And Balaam gets off, and what does he do? He only knows one trick. He beats the donkey. I mean, this is kind of the process of the world. The world and its ways show you when they keep beating things, keep attacking things, keep blaming things. Instead of catching the real, they're supposed to be a seer, supposed to have all this information and wisdom, and now he can't see the writing on the wall and can't see the angel in front of him. Well, we see it happen, and he goes with the angel's sword at his neck, so to speak. This is the way all the prophet of the end days, the prophet of the beast, the prophet of the Antichrist, the false prophet, he's going to have the same angel bothering him. The anti-Messiah is pictured by Balak, and the elders of Midian are the not so new world order. This is all just an imagery, a picture to tell you where this world ends and where it begins, and how the Holy One sits in his heavens and says, "I will establish my king on my holy hill, and I will say unto him, you are my son. I've this day begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for an inheritance." It's one other thing that the story ends that after the failure of Balaam to do anything besides waste everybody's time and put on a good dog and pony show. I mean, he definitely had entertaining episodes, 7 altars and all these 7 altars and 7 bulls and 7 goats and all this. He put on a big show, but he came up with nothing. Said some things that we use in our own synagogue services. Motto, how lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your tabernacles, Israel. That becomes the opening line for our synagogue. Because, he said some things that weren't the curses he was asked to give. But nevertheless, what happened at the end, we aren't really told how it happened in this parsha, but we will be later in Numbers 31. That Balaam, as he was leaving, counseled the elders of Moab and Midian, or one or the other or both, that they could seduce, if they couldn't curse Bnei Israel, they could seduce them with the allure of their women. And so that's what happens at the end of the story. No matter all the wonderful things about the Holy One protecting us from the assault of the enemy, the one thing that he won't protect us from is our own lust. He won't protect us from our own desire, our own will to go out and join ourselves to Baal Peor and to the women of Midian, to the fleshly things of this world. Friendship with this world is enmity with God. So that's the limit on which he lets us have our own free will. Now, he will restore, he will heal, he will do all these wonderful things in the end. He will bring things to life and hope, health, and peace. He will cure it, but he will allow us to go down this road. So this is the wisdom, this is the way of Balaam. This is what we really wind up with. He can't really curse us. If you're afraid of witches and warlocks and you're afraid of those who curse you, that's not going to be your problem. The problem, because the Holy One's there with the angel and the sword. The problem that you have is not the curses they proclaim against it. It's the seductions they are able to commit against you. It's the way in which they can make you want what they have. It's the way in which they can induce you to go into behaviors that are against the Torah, against the way of the Holy One. It actually says they did two things. Yeshua actually talked about it. Yeshua talked about this Balaam story in the Revelation, in the book of Revelation, in chapter 2, verse 14. When he was talking to Smyrna, the ecclesia, the kahila at Smyrna, he said that I have against you because some of you follow the way of Balaam. Yeshua talking about this. He's picking up the Torah. He's telling the Torah story to the people at Smyrna. He says, some of you are following the way of Balaam. And he defined it. Who taught Bnei Israel, who taught the people of Israel to eat food that had been sacrificed to idols and to commit fornication. Eating food sacrificed to idols? Seriously? Yeah. Because you see, once you take their food, you take their dainties, you take their unclean things, then you begin to live their unclean ways. This is why the famous line came out of the Maccabee story, came out of the times of Hanukkah. The reason they were so adamant not to eat the pork, not to take that flesh of the swine, was because if you take the swine, if you eat the pork, you'll take the mark. Once you go down that road, you will not stop. And so this is that line in the saying. It says, they counsel you it's okay to eat food that's been sacrificed to idols. As a matter of fact, you should eat it. And then once you do, what happens is you begin to absorb that uncleanness and follow through with it all the way through. And then it says that will eventually lead you into perversion, into fornication, into all sorts of sexuality, sensuality, sentimentality, pseudo-intellectualism, self-justification, all sorts of negative behavior. And that means that all the world is going to come live in your head rent-free and tell you what you should think, tell you what you should feel, tell you how you should hate, how you should be angry, how you should be offended, how you should be outraged, how you should curse. And the Holy One says, no, my child, you were made for better than this. You were made for more than this. You were made to overcome this. You were made to bless. Go forth and bless. Amen. Shabbat shalom. We'll see you next week.